Hello friends, welcome to my channel Creating Essence. I am Megan and today I have a really special guest with me.
Who are you? What's your Cooper?
He's Cooper. He's trying to stare lovingly into my eyes. This is Cooper. He is our red Australian Shepherd. I'm sure you've seen him on the vlogs before. He loves to get in on the vlogs. Cooper is not just your average Australian Shepherd. And no, he's not a golden. I know everybody thinks he's a golden. He is a red Australian Shepherd. But he's an extra special one. His color is so light that he is unregisterable because they want to phase his coloration out of the Australian Shepherd gene pool. So he is our extra special red, purebred Australian Shepherd reject. But we love you. Yes, you do. Cooper has a really important job in our family, and that is that he is a service dog. We noticed that when Cooper was a puppy, we got him when he was 10 weeks old a few years ago, and we noticed that he was really intuitive toward our oldest son's emotional well-being. If he cried, if our oldest son cried or got upset, Cooper instantly would run to him, wanted to lay on him and nuzzle him, which is really neat because one of the things that calms our son, who by the way has autism, one of the things that calms him is like heavy pressure and sensory input that's like squeezing or pressing. So the dog kind of like, he'll kind of sit on him. He would scooch his butt and sit on him and lean into him and just nuzzle him with his head, and it would calm our son down. We noticed that he was very intuitive towards our son's anxiety, which we never planned on training Cooper as a service dog. We just got him to be a guard dog, a family pet, just a little member of our mini homestead here. But he has turned out to be an amazing caretaker for our son with autism. When our son gets anxiety about things, he just sort of gets that and hones in on that and tries to intervene. For example, the spring is really hard for our son because he's actually afraid of bugs that fly. And he gets used to every single winter there being no bugs around. And then in the spring, when all the bugs are coming out, he has a lot of panic attacks all the time. All the time. Several times a day, he has a panic attack because he heard or saw or thought he heard or saw a flying bug nearby. It's just terrifying to him that the bug is going to sting him or bite him or land on him, and he instantly thinks he's being attacked and will just shriek and run and melt into an anxiety attack if he can't instantly feel safe. Our dog honed in on that, and by the time he was a year old, every single time, whether Gabe would notice or not and get upset, whenever there was a bug nearby, Cooper would attack it and eat it. Like, we don't even need fly swatters. We've got a dog that eats flies, wasps, crawling bugs of any kind, hornets, anything. If he hears it or sees it, and his hearing is much better than ours, he will snap it and he will eat it and attack it. And he started doing this because our son would get so upset, and he figured out very quickly that that made our son upset, so he would attack it. And that's just another example of kind of one of the intuitive ways that we saw our dog connecting with our son and just understanding him on a whole different level and caring for him differently than he did any of our other children. So when our son started having really bad social anxiety and being afraid to leave the house about 2 years ago, we noticed our dog was really in tune with that and just wanted to comfort our son and take care of him. And we noticed that our son would feel very calmed and comforted when he could hold on to the dog and hug him. When we're getting ready to walk out the door, he would be really upset, and the dog would sit with him by the door and just sit there quietly and let our son hug him. And the dog did that all on his own. We didn't even say, like, Cooper, go comfort Gabe. He would just do it. And he was just very intuitive in lots of ways. And one day, a friend of ours whose daughter has a seizure disorder and has a medically trained service dog saw how Cooper was responding to Gabe, and she was like, why don't you train him to be a service dog? And it had never really crossed my mind that it was even a possibility. And I started looking into it at her encouragement, and I found that the emotional well-being service dogs don't have the same sort of requirements in training as a medical service dog. I think service dogs in general are just, it's incredible how dogs and humans can communicate, and dogs can aid humans in that way, but I never really considered it. But I looked into it, and we started trying things, just basic training things, because there is not a federal requirement for some kind of registration or formal training. You just, basically, you have to make sure that your service dog is adequately trained, however that happens, so that, in essence, he doesn't ruin it for everyone else. He is a well-behaved, properly trained service dog that doesn't make it so that basically service dogs aren't allowed wherever you're going. So he was, as an Australian Shepherd, he's already very, very smart and picks up on things very quickly. We started the clicker training, and for 15 minutes a day, we were doing behavior training, and he was already a very well-behaved dog, but we started his clicker training, and he picked up on it so quickly. And we started slowly taking him places, and it was always like public places like the park and things like that. So after a lot of time, many hours spent training, we found this book to be really helpful. This is called Teamwork, Book 1, A Dog Training Manual for People with Disabilities by Stuart Nordenson and Lydia Kelly. This is written by someone with cerebral palsy who has a service dog and has been training service dogs for many years. Or they made a series of workbooks to help people train their own service dogs, teaching them in great detail what kind of skills they needed to have, what kind of behaviors were beneficial, whether that's always something that you would utilize or not. And it's really been a spectacular guide to helping us train our dog to be a proper service dog. He wears a gentle leader as well as a service dog harness, a full harness that's colored and has written on it his badges for service dog training. And he goes with us. We don't often take him when my husband is along, because my husband helps my son feel very calm and he's just an extra set of hands. But when it's just me and the kids, we always take Cooper along. And Cooper's role is really twofold, at least. Number one, he helps Gabe feel calm. He's his backup, he's his buddy. There have been so many times when Gabe was overwhelmed in Costco when it was a really busy day in the store, and we just had to sit down in a side aisle, and Gabe just had to sit down on the floor and snuggle Cooper for a couple minutes. And that's his job. It worked perfectly, where usually he would be triggered and a mess the entire rest of the day and potentially have a screaming, flailing fit and a panic attack in Costco. Instead, we just sat in an aisle for 2 minutes and he hugged his dog. And it worked perfectly. It calmed him down, it helped him feel okay, and Cooper just leaned in and took good care of him, huh, Pupper? Yes, you're a good boy. And the other role that Cooper plays in helping Gabe when we're out in public is that he gives him something to focus on. People with autism tend to hyper-focus. And by hyper-focus, that doesn't mean they can look at something and choose. They're really gonna dig in right there. It's that their brain is just obsessed with something, anything at that given moment. And they don't really have a lot of control over that. And oftentimes, because he's 9 now and he is getting more aware of the dangers and ills in society and criminals, for lack of a better term, just all the things that can go wrong. Gabe often hyper focuses on that, and that's where a lot of his social anxiety comes from. Handling Cooper, having one hand on the leash that controls the gentle leader and the other hand on the handle on his harness, gives him a job to do, and it gives him something to focus on. So even when he is concerned about other things, his attention is always brought back to that dog that is moving with him and next to him. And it keeps him calm, and it's kind of a preventative thing. He always gives him something to think about, something to focus on right there, instead of staring at every single person that walks by and wondering if they're a criminal, which unfortunately is the way my son's brain works. The world is a hostile place to him, and it always has been because of overwhelming sensory input. And he reads everything, magazines, newspapers, and any book he can get his hands on. He knows full well that there are scary things that happen in society, and his brain obsesses over all the potential bad things that could happen, and it makes him terrified to leave the house at times. But since having Cooper, he is still reluctant, but we explain to him where we're going and what we're doing, and that he's got his backup with him. And he is so much more calm and so much more ready to take it on. He's reluctant, but he's not having panic attacks and screaming hysterically. It is, as much as it may sometimes be another child with me, one covered with fur, one that attracts attention, one that people bark at. I think that's the thing I get the least about having a service dog with us is people bark at him like full-grown adults. We were walking through Costco probably 3 weeks ago, and there was one of those tables set up where people were trying to get you to sign up for a credit card, and we were walking by, and the gentleman tried to flag me down, saying something about, "Can I get a credit card for Christmas presents?" I said, "Oh no, thank you. I don't need a credit card, but thank you very much." And he said, "Oh, okay." And then he noticed we had a service dog, and he started going, "Who let the dogs out?" And just started barking, just nonstop at the dog. It's like, another special thing about Cooper is that he can be pet. It is a wonderful rule of thumb when you see a service dog to not pet them, just kind of pretend they're not there, or ask their owner if it's an appropriate situation, if they can be touched. Because a lot, especially the medically trained service dogs and the work dogs, they have a job to do, and you do not want to distract them. Our dog is special. His job is to be loved and to love on people and help them feel calm and happy. And he spends his day being loved on by kids, and he still does his job wonderfully. So he is a service dog that can be pet. There's only been once that I asked somebody not to touch him, and that was less that he was a service dog and more that the little boy kept walking up behind us at the library and yanking on Cooper's hair. But like I said, in general, it is a good rule of thumb to ask if you can touch someone's service dog. Ours you can. And I have actually had people yell at me over that. This is our service dog. He performs his duties. He is well trained, and he is an excellent emotional wellness dog. He can be a pet. And when people have asked in public if they can pet him. Others will walk by and hear me say yes, and be like, well, if he's a real service dog, you can't. Well, he's a real service dog. He's an impeccably trained service dog. And part of his job is to love on children and be loved. So there's not just one kind of service dog. There are service dogs that do all kinds of jobs. There are medical service dogs. There are working service dogs that do tasks and help people with mobility issues. And then there are emotional well-being service dogs like Cooper, who just exist to intuitively love, nurture, and care for people and keep them calm by doing so. And that's what Cooper does. If you have any questions about our service dog or how he was trained or anything like that, please leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear, and I would love to answer any questions you have. I might even do a Q&A on service dog questions, and I can get Gabe here to answer questions if anyone would like to ask him a question. Thank you so much for sticking around, friends. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Bye-bye, friends.
Hi, Goopy. You're a good boy.